and welcome to Chanel and Muckboots. I'm Suzanne Capral, and today we are visiting New Zealand, and we have our guest, Jessica Nelipovich. Jessica, for several years now, has lived in New Zealand, and she is formerly from the United States, Pennsylvania to be exact, and we're interested in getting her views, perspectives, feelings about what's going on with COVID-19. Now, it is Saturday, April 4th here in the States, 5 p.m. And if I am correct, Jessica, it is Sunday morning, a little bit after 10 a.m. where you are?
Almost right on. After we scheduled our talk, it turns out we had daylight savings time this morning. So it's 9:15.
Okay.
So we went back an hour last night.
You went back an hour, so you do that whole daylight savings time thing too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So how are you doing? How are you doing? And how's your family over there doing? Are you safe? Are you well? What's going on?
We're good. So we're in about day 12 of total lockdown.
Okay.
So my bubble is my husband and my cat. Cat went out yesterday and asked if we wanted the radio left on while she was out. So that was nice. No, so we're good. So we're good. It's to say it's a crazy time seems like an understatement. So in New Zealand, we're on a countrywide lockdown. You cannot leave your house unless you are going out for something essential like medication or groceries. You can go a short distance from your house for exercise. So if you want to go for a walk or a run, but that's it. So staying busy at home, gardening, cooking. My house is really clean right now.
Yeah.
But feeling really grateful that I have a job that I can do from home. So my Monday through Friday is pretty unaffected, except that my commute in the morning is much shorter.
Right. Now, I read on the New Zealand government website before that you are in a level 4. So what exactly does a level 4 mean?
Yeah, so level 4 is it's a nationwide lockdown. So it's the stay at home, save lives is what they're saying. So we were in level 1 for a while, and then I think we were level 2. And then went to level 3, which is a little bit more heightened. And in level 3, we had 48 hours basically to get yourself sorted, which meant schooling your kids from home, childcare, setting yourself up to work from home. So level 4 is just 4 weeks, they're saying. Whether or not that will get extended, we're supposed to find out this weekend. But it's stay at home, don't go anywhere unless you absolutely need to.
Right. Now, how are the cases where you are? I mean, in the United States, we're over 200. Let me just check. 277,205. So we have 6,593 deaths. And in Pennsylvania, we are over 10,000 cases right now. So we are getting hit pretty hard. It's truly tragic. Now, what is it like in New Zealand?
Wow, that's staggering. So in New Zealand, I think as of last night, we're sitting at around 900 cases.
Okay.
We've had about 100 people recover, and we've had one death. I think we've got maybe a dozen people in the hospital, and a couple of them are in intensive care. So right now in the news last night, they were saying they think they're flattening the curve. So we had, I think, 80 new cases yesterday, and they expect to see that on the decline over the next few days.
Wow, that's incredible. So they are hopeful that you're going to start to flatten the curve. And then when did this start to hit New Zealand?
Oh, I think we had our first case around the end of February. So we had about a half a dozen. I think we were at 6 or 7 on a Friday. And by the following Monday, we were over 100. And that would have been just 2 weeks ago yesterday. So it's really just ramped up in about the last 3 weeks. So probably from the end of February to now.
Okay. And then what about businesses in your area? What is the main source of commerce, income, and how are the businesses affected now you're in Nelson. Where is that?
So I'm in
New Zealand.
Right. So I live in a little town called Motueka, which is about 40 minutes outside of Nelson on the top of the South Island.
Okay.
So where I live, agriculture is probably the biggest industry. They grow a lot of fruit here, a lot of apples. It's a big wine producing region. Around the country, though, tourism is our biggest industry. And in New Zealand, I think 75% of businesses are small family-owned businesses. So people have been hit pretty hard.
Right.
Um, the borders are closed, so no one's coming in and no one's going out. Air New Zealand, which is our national airline, is struggling. So they just recently announced that after this lockdown period, they'll come back as a domestic airline. And they're talking about going from 20 regional airports to half a dozen.
Oh my God.
Bays are closed. Yeah. They've gone from, I think, $600 billion a year in revenue to $500 million. Everything is closed. So every cafe, every restaurant, the only things that are open are the supermarket, pharmacies. You can get essential things done, like if you are an essential worker and your car needs service, you can make arrangements to do that. I don't know how businesses are going to come back. In the town where I live, it's a really small town. We don't even have a single street light. And our high street is all small local shops. And I don't know what that will look like in a few weeks' time when people can go out again. I don't know how most of them can cope for weeks without any business. Yeah.
What are the demographics? Do you have a lot of elderly, or you do pretty much, as far as ages are concerned?
Yeah, definitely. And my mother-in-law, who lives just down the street, she's 65. We have older people in our family. Fortunately, no one in my town has been infected yet that we know of. So no one that I know directly has been impacted. Back home, I worry about my parents. My parents are both in their 70s, and my dad had cancer and has chronic pneumonia. So worry about them as well. And worry about, selfishly, I don't know when I'll be able to come home again.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
We are we're in a state of, we have to stay in our homes unless it's absolutely necessary. The schools are all
Right.
closed, of course. Essential businesses are open, and that is until the end of April. And realistically, I mean, we didn't spike yet. That could go on, and I would not be surprised if it went on a few to several weeks after.
Right. And we've been watching the news quite a bit, and it looks like are decisions being made state by state in terms of shelter at home versus?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, we have, of course, recommendations and what needs to be done on a federal level, and that's a lot of that
Right.
has to do with businesses and business loans and grants available. So there's this incredible financial devastation, really, and it's not just the United States. I mean, you're seeing it well in New Zealand and in your small town.
Yeah.
And then on a state level, we have the governors who are each making their individual, and of course they're very in close contact with each other and in close contact with the president. Pennsylvania is close to New York City. We have a lot of individuals that travel to and from New York City every day, and of course that has stopped. Philadelphia is hit very hard, so there, and of course in New York City, it's just devastation. I mean, there's so many individuals who are sick and dying. At one point there was one death every 24 hours. We thought that was insane and awful. It's actually sooner now. So we're all trying to get our arms wrapped around this and our heads wrapped around this. The main time, like, we don't even know what we're actually dealing with as far as the virus and the impact.
Yeah. Well, it's staggering that, I remember being at the gym a few weeks ago with my coach and saying, "Oh, have you heard about this thing?" And thinking, "Oh, it's social media. It's kind of run away with it. And there's all this misinformation." And I think that was 3 weeks ago that I thought this was no big deal. And now it's like, in your house, you have to designate one person that goes to the supermarket. Our family's one person. And when we run out of things, I'm like, forget it. I'm not going more than once a week. Like, every time you go, you're putting yourself at risk. And, it's hard to imagine that in such a short space of time, this has become possibly the defining feature of maybe the last 10 years, if not longer. Mm.
Absolutely. And it was at first when this was first discovered, and it really was something that was thought to be affecting the elderly. And by the elderly, they would say
Mhm.
60, 65 and older. But we
Yeah.
have so many cases now of individuals 25 to 45. And in Pennsylvania, that's the bulk of who has COVID-19.
Oh,
They're not
wow.
necessarily on respirators. They're not necessarily in intensive care, but you know, we're carrying it, and we could be carrying
Mm.
this and not even know it because we could be asymptomatic. So that's scary too.
Yeah.
That's very
I agree.
disturbing.
Yeah. And then I heard some stories as well that in China they're having cases of people getting reinfected
Yes.
that had recovered.
Hmm.
So I think previously it was thought that you would have immunity to it
Right.
once you had it, and that's turning out not to be the case.
No, no, it's not the
Mm.
case. You said
Mm.
that you pretty much work from home and that you were grateful to
Yeah.
have a job that allowed you to do that. So what do you do?
Right. So I work for a company called Blind Low Vision New Zealand Guide Dogs. So
Okay.
I'm the national manager of guide dog training and client services in New Zealand. So my as a management position, I can pretty much work from anywhere. So it's been a kind of a challenge the last 10 days to find work for my staff, who are dog trainers and used to being out and walking, 10, 15 kilometers a day, who now sit at a computer all day long and finding it a bit of a transition. But I work for a really amazing organization that's working really hard to keep us all at work so that we don't have to take leave.
Now these dogs are being trained to assist the blind, the visually impaired.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And where are the dogs now? So you have these trainers and you have these dogs. Do you
Yeah.
have dogs in waiting? I mean, do you have puppies that need to be
Yeah.
socialized? So, like, how is this? This is interesting. How is this actually affecting the work and the training of the dogs?
So that's a question we'll be able to answer more fully in a few months. So there is no training going on at the moment.
Okay.
All of our training dogs are out boarding in the community. Some of them are with trainers at home. The rest of them are with the puppy raisers that reared them from little puppies.
Hmm.
Um, our across the organization, we are shut down except for the most essential things. So the only really essential thing we have going is our breeding center, because we have dogs that are scheduled to whelp during this time. So we've got breeding center staff going in, working with the very young puppies and waiting for this next brood to deliver. We had some litters of puppies placed about 3 weeks before this happened. So those puppies would be in their what's known as the critical period, where it's really the key time to be exposing them to places and circumstances. So that's not happening.
Wow.
Obviously, people can still go for walks with their dogs, but that's really it. So there's no going to cafes or riding public transport or socializing with your friends and their dogs. And so what the bigger impact of this will mean, from that perspective, we won't know for probably 6 to 12 months. It does mean there'll be a decline in the service we're able to provide because we've had to skip a couple of matings. From the time a dog is born, it's about 2 years till they're ready to be placed with a person who's blind or visually impaired. So skipping matings means that in 2 years' time, we won't have dogs available. So we'll see a lull, and that's scary to think that what's happening now, we're going to feel the impact for at least 2 years.
Absolutely. I think about that as well. We're going through this and the grown-ups are going through this. And I pause and I think about the children. And I think about the kids on a few levels. They're not in school. And at first it's like, this is great. This is like, we're not in school and this is terrific. And then, as time goes on, the routine is starting to be changed, and it's changed
Hmm.
early. It's not summertime here yet.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
also look at the children who are watching the adults behave and watching the adults react. And
yeah,
I just keep reminding myself and others, we've got to act as if our kids are watching and our grandchildren are watching, because they are.
yeah.
We're
They
setting the
are. Yeah.
example for them. And yeah, so I didn't think of it until now, until you said, you have clients that will be depending on these dogs, and
Hmm.
there's going to be a shortage.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
What
So,
would you partner with another organization? Would you partner with another town, country? I mean, how do you fill that gap? I mean, that's my question. How are you going to fill that gap?
Oh, and in the short term, I don't know how to answer that question. We already partner with other organizations in New Zealand and around the world. So in New Zealand, we're the only organization that provides dogs to people who are blind or visually impaired.
Okay.
There are other service dog organizations, but we are far and above the largest. So we actually end up supplying a lot of dogs to other service dog organizations in New Zealand. Around the world, we partner with other schools, particularly around genetic material. So we do sell some puppies offshore to other schools, but we also import semen from a couple of the bigger schools around the world. My guess is that other schools will be impacted the same. I have colleagues at the school where I did my training in New Jersey who are in a similar circumstance where they've emptied out their kennels and all their dogs are out boarding, and there's no training happening at the moment. A lot of schools around the world are similar size to us. So we don't have infinite resources. And if you're in a similar position where you're skipping matings or your socialization protocols aren't happening, you might not get a dog who's viable for service work. I don't know yet. And how we fill that gap is going to be a question that we'll have to answer in a couple of years. We already have a waiting list. So what we do to mitigate that, I don't know how long it will take to fix.
How long does the dog usually stay with an individual? Is there a certain amount of years, or do you look for a decline, or is there an average age? How do you determine when that term for that dog is up?
Yeah. So for every dog, it's a little bit different. We hope that a dog will work till about its 10th birthday.
Okay.
We do have a compulsory retirement age of 11 because we want the dog to have to enjoy some retirement. But you get some dogs around, 7, 8 years old, they're slowing down and they're showing signs of age. So it can be quite individual, but the goal is 10 years.
The goal is 10 years.
But
I'm sorry.
I would say dogs are like people. You get, their reflexes slow, their vision deteriorates, their hearing deteriorates, they get a little arthritis in the hips. So our dogs get 6 monthly health checks. So we stay, pretty on top of their health. And we think of them as canine athletes. So we monitor that really closely. And if they show a decline that could impact someone's safety, that's when we start looking at replacing them.
Is there a certain specific breed, or do you use a mixture of different types of dogs?
So we breed Labrador retrievers, so good all-rounder.
Yep.
We breed golden retrievers. We do a cross between the Labradors and the Goldens, and then we also breed standard poodles for people who have allergies. Until very recently, we used Shepherds, but we, as of last year, have stopped breeding German Shepherds.
Was there a reason why?
So German Shepherds have they have a lower success rate, so it takes more resources into the Shepherds. So a school our size, we've struggled to establish a good Shepherd breeding program. And around the world, a lot of schools have stopped using Shepherds. You get a dog like a Labrador Retriever or a Golden Retriever that is so biddable and can be pretty easily handled and controlled by such a huge range of people that it just makes a really good choice. And a lot of schools around the world have stopped using Shepherds, actually.
Okay. And are you a nonprofit organization?
We are a nonprofit, yes.
Okay, so you depend primarily on foundations, on grants, on fundraising.
Solely. So we don't get any government assistance. So we are 100% publicly funded bequests, legacies, donations. The first weekend in April, we normally have a street appeal called the Red Puppy Appeal, where we go out and have events in the community to fundraise.
And that's not going to happen.
No.
And then take it a step further with you being in a lockdown situation and so many businesses now being put on hold. It wouldn't be surprising if businesses were no longer in business when this is over. So you have to prepare for an option, your option B, because the funding is not going to be as available. And fundraising is tough. No matter what you're doing, it's a tough business, and in some instances, it's competitive. So you're out there, you're telling your story, and you are trying to garner funds. This is going to make it a lot more difficult for your organization and for the dogs and for your clients.
Yeah, most likely. I talked to one client who was on the wait list for a dog, and she said, can you take me off the list? I'm a travel agent. So this is the week before we went into lockdown. She's a travel agent. She said, I'm going to lose my job next week. And when I lose my job, I'm going to have to put my house on the market because I can't pay my mortgage. She said, a guide dog is the last thing on my mind right now.
Right.
Okay.
Is there anything being offered as far as the government, any sort of assistance programs to someone like that?
Yeah.
There's an example. So she's
Yeah.
visually
So
impaired.
the
She's
New
doing a
Zealand
good job.
Yeah, so the New Zealand government has been amazing. So as I said earlier, about 3/4 of the businesses in New Zealand are small family-owned businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So straight away, the government came out with a couple of things. One is a wage subsidy scheme.
Okay.
So for organizations that have more than 30% loss in revenue, they can apply for the wage subsidy scheme for their workers.
Good.
So this has been amazing for restaurants, cafes, retailers who have hourly wage staff. I have a lot of friends that are business owners that applied for their own subsidy, so a friend of mine that's a personal trainer, so he's self-employed. So he said he applied for it on a Wednesday and got paid on Friday. So the government has been really fast at helping people out, and from my perspective, it looks like it's been quite generous as well.
Very good. That's encouraging. So that helps. It's a pressure cooker situation, but this helps, and this helps everyone. Now you're ag, so you're primarily ag in your area. Is agriculture still up and running?
Yeah, because food is essential. People
Yep.
have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And right now is apple picking season. So fortunately, we don't have apples dying on the trees or falling to the ground. So that's still going ahead. I have a good friend of mine who's an orchardist, and she's got I think 150 Tongan pickers on site, and in lockdown together. And they've got little bubbles, and managing. You have to keep a 2-meter distance, about 6 feet from everybody. So they're managing to do a pick and a process and get apples to the pack house and keep their staff safe. So it's pretty amazing. And the message from the government and the news media has been be kind. No one wants to be in this situation, and we're all in this together. And our amazing prime minister, she does a daily media update, and so she keeps telling people just be kind to one another. And it's what you have to do, because as you say, a situation like this really reveals someone's character. And our children are seeing us. Their children are going to see. They're going to remember how you reacted, and you can just be patient with yourself, and be kind with each other. I think like most people, the fridge is sick of me seeing me open the doors. I'm a little more chipmunk cheeked than I was a couple of weeks ago. And it's just just be patient.
Now, what are you doing personally to handle the stress of being confined? I mean, you get a chance to go out, you can go so far, but we don't have the freedoms that we did. So we have to adapt. So how are you handling this new normal, being confined to your home primarily?
Yeah. Well, so outside of this, my day-to-day life as a dog trainer, I'm an athlete. So when they said lockdown, I went, what? And I ran into the store and bought gym equipment. Yeah. So I've got a little mini gym set up in the garage. So I managed to source all that the day before we went into lockdown. I've been walking every day, which is hilarious, because anyone who knows me knows I hate to walk for pleasure. Like, it's just not me. But we live reasonably close to a tidal estuary with some trails, so I walk out there every day, and it's just epic scenery. So I do that twice a day. I meditate. I started meditating about 2 years ago after spinal surgery, when I was on bed rest in hospital, and it changed my life. So I still do that every day. So yeah, make sure every day to get outside. To go get some exercise. Still meditating every day. I've been
How
doing a
long
lot
do
of
you
jigsaw.
meditate? How long do you meditate every day?
It's only about 20 minutes. It's not that long.
Right, but
It's
that's
not that
enough,
long.
right?
Yeah. And when I started small. I would do 3 minutes, and that's all I had the patience for. And now I do about 20 minutes. And yeah, if anyone who's listening to this or watching this, man, just give it a go. It'll change your life, seriously.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting you said that because we hear and a lot is you should meditate, you should practice your breathing, you should meditate, and a lot of people are saying I can't, I'm too wired, I'm too high strung, but that's exactly what you should be. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this kid totally high strung. That's my jam. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you
So
do
I
this, is it a guided meditation?
Yeah, so I don't know if you are familiar with the app Headspace.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so Headspace, and the guy who leads the meditations, his voice is amazing. So there's unguided ones as well. So yeah, I started using Headspace, and they have basically everything you could think of from you know relationships, happiness, recovering from injury, sleep, falling back to sleep, eating, and they range from 3 minutes to 20 minutes, or you can do the unguided ones for any amount of time. So,
Okay.
yeah, when I started, I put on a 3 minute one, and after a couple weeks, I'm like, oh, I think I could do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And now 2 years later on, like I really look forward to this every day. So, if all you have is 3 minutes, if that's all you can sit still for,
Mhm.
so what? And that's what it's not a competition. It's not about what somebody else does or what works for someone else. It's about what works for you, and what gives you a little bit of breathing space. And if 3 minutes is what works for you, don't beat yourself up because you didn't do 20 minutes. Give yourself a pat on the back because for 3 minutes you looked after yourself.
That's excellent.
Um,
And it's called
no,
Headspace.
yes, Headspace.
Headspace.
You can download it. I have it on my iPhone. You can probably get it for Android as well, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Beautiful. Well,
And I
thank
don't know
you
if you
for
listen
that.
to there's another podcast that I listen to that he at the end of the podcast he asks his guests, like, knowing everything you know now about health and fitness, what are 3 things you wish you'd done, or 3 things that you wouldn't be without? I swear 95% of those people say meditation. And
Yeah,
so there's something to this. And
definitely.
and there is. Yeah.
Very good.
It's
Thank you.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
for our listeners and our viewers, could you please share the name of the dog training organization that you work for? We're going to include it on the website as well. But if
Cool.
you could just give us a, kind of an overview of the name and your mission statement, that would be great.
So it's Blind Low Vision New Zealand Guide Dogs. And what is our mission statement? I think Life Without Limits. That's our tagline, is Life Without Limits.
Yeah.
So we provide services to everyday Kiwis, from basically from cradle to grave. So from infancy to late adulthood.
This is
And Guide Dogs is just one of the services that we provide. So it's the one that I'm tethered to, but we also provide adaptive daily living, recreation, deafblind services. So if there's employment services, if there's a service that someone who is blind or has low vision wants to access, we can provide it.
This is excellent. Excellent. And then if you were going to give your top 5 ways that you would recommend to a good friend how to get through this, what would those top 5 suggestions be?
Go outside, move around. Yeah, those can be 2 different ones. Go outside,
Yeah.
move around. Um, it's okay if you gain a little bit of weight. Um, Read a book, and connect with people you love, whether they're in your bubble or outside your bubble. Make sure you're connecting with other people you love.
That's perfect. This
Yeah.
is
What are
great.
yours? I want to know what yours are.
I'll tell you exactly. Mine are get outside and walk. You need fresh air and you need sunshine, even if it's around the block.
Yeah.
You have to keep your social distance. I absolutely believe in taking some free time, whether it's journaling or if it's meditating.
Mm,
To the best of your ability with what you have, eat healthy foods. And you can't do it 100% of the time, but if you're going to be eating high sugar all the time, you're going to crash, you're going to get depressed.
You're not going to feel
Limit
good.
alcohol if you possibly can, because again, that would keep you depressed. If you are fortunate to have animals part of your family, spending time with them, stroking them, brushing them, even the care and feeding, because the animals also pick up on our vibes, and that is something that we need to keep aware of as well. And absolutely, even if you text somebody once or twice a week, share that I love you and I miss you and that we're going to be together again, and just keep that connection going. We're isolated, but we could still be together. We can still have these quasi face-to-face conversations, and I think connection. I think the most important thing is, what are we missing right now? When I think about what I am missing, those are the priorities. I'm not missing going shopping to Sephora or to Ulta or wherever, getting makeup or going here and there. I miss the people who I interact with on a daily basis. And that's a real priority check. That's a real check for me. And I'm hoping others as well.
And do you think it will impact, like when this is in the past, do you think it will impact the things that you prioritize on a day-to-day basis?
I hope so. I really do. And I've thought about that. I hope that when this is all over, I still want to just take those long walks with my dogs. I want to keep the people I love even closer to me, support local family-owned business. I think that's such a priority. And then right now, you look at the individuals who are running the grocery stores. You look at the farmers. You look at the truck drivers. You look at the hospital workers who are on the front lines every single day, putting their life on the line to make sure that our loved ones come back to us and that they live and that they get better. So it's those things that I am seeing that I think collectively we need to stick to those priorities, because those are the ones right now who are keeping this whole place going.
Yeah, my stepdaughter works at the supermarket here in town, and I think y'all be nice to the girls on the checkout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be nice, because I've heard some horror stories. So I'll just tell you this. Normally at the supermarket I don't take a receipt because I don't need it.
Right.
And the guy said, "Oh, we have to give it to you because we've had some walkouts."
Walkouts?
Yeah, people walking out with a trolley full of groceries.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, even the supermarket is owned by, it's a franchise, but it's owned by local people. And even if it wasn't, that doesn't make it okay. Like, y'all, be nice. Pay for your groceries.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Be nice and be respectful, please. Yeah. It's kind of the pressure cooker situation. It doesn't define character. It reveals character. So
that's right.
Really,
that's right.
Individuals, who they are coming out. So it's like peeling away layers and layers of the onion or whatever. You get to that core, and we're seeing it now. And I think in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to be seeing it more.
You're going to be seeing it more. Yeah. And I think from what I've been hearing, around day 10 to 12 is when people start to really feel the pressure of being kind of in this little isolation bubble.
Yeah. And even as far as like the government is concerned, because like no one's happy on social media. Okay. Everybody has their opinion and everybody could do it better. Okay. And I look at it this way. I just could not imagine the individuals making these decisions, because they are dealing with the economy. They are dealing with people's lives. I mean, there are so many different moving parts. The pressure just has to be enormous, whether it's on a county level, a state level, a federal level. I just wouldn't want to be there. And I have the utmost respect for everybody who's doing the best they can right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're fortunate. We have the prime minister at our helm. She's just an amazing individual. Speaking of women who get shit done, she's incredible. And I feel really grateful to, have her leading us through this, but I wouldn't want to trade places for all the toilet paper at the supermarket.
Is that an issue over there as well? Are you guys having like major shortage of toilet paper? Because we did. It was insane. It was just crazy. And it's still,
I know. We saw it on the news. No, so we actually make toilet paper in New Zealand.
Uh-huh.
And I think for some countries, they import their toilet paper from China, which was, as things, exports from China were slowing down. And so it was becoming a short supply. So we've had, no, but there was a couple of weeks where you could not buy pasta, you couldn't buy bread. So we absolutely we had some panic buying. We never got low on toilet paper, fortunately. But the last time I was at the supermarket, it was normal. Yeah, but
Good.
not the toilet paper.
I hope now it's peaked and you're going to start to come down, and that curve is going to,
Yeah.
is going to take the downward now. Thank God.
I hope so too. I did see on the news last night they were talking about, New Zealand's one of the countries where they're going to try to eradicate it completely.
Okay.
And, I have to be honest, and that scares me a little bit because to eradicate it completely really, I guess to my way of thinking, compromises how we might interact with the rest of the world who still has it.
Good point.
Um,
Right.
And for me, like I wouldn't want anyone to get this. It sounds absolutely horrible. But as an expat living abroad, I suppose like a lot of people, I worry about how this affects me personally. And I think, when will I see my parents again? And so I'm waiting to see what that looks like. I mean, I think it'd be amazing if we could eradicate it everywhere.
Everywhere.
But certainly would like to see it gone.
I'd love to see it gone, and I'd love to see it stop morphing and just changing all these directions inside. It's like a Rubik's cube right now. So you really don't know what
Yeah.
you're dealing with one week to the next. So God bless the
Everyone
individual.
day the next from the time I get to work at 8 a.m. till I leave at 4 p.m. It can be, the messages I had to give to my staff are completely different,
Yeah.
in the space of 8 hours. And what about who's looking after the farm?
The farm, Hillside Farms.
Yeah.
Hillside Farms is still up and running since it's a dairy farm. And the farm store is still open because it obviously supplies the dairy and the eggs, dry goods, soups, pastas, etc. Skeleton staff, but the cows still
Right.
need to be milked twice a day, and the chickens need to be attended to, and we have the goats and the sheep and the pigs and everything else. So there's a lot of animals that still need the care. So there's a very small staff right now, primarily farmers, as well as our executive director, who it really is hands-on now, making
Nice.
that whole ag part run. Thank heavens. Because that is an absolute jewel of northeastern Pennsylvania. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. No, I have good memories of it. Last time I was there, going with Angela to feed the chickens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's a wonderful place. It's wonderful.
That's an amazing place.
Jessica, thank you so much for your time and your insight. And this will be up in about 7 days. And I just want to thank you so much. And the dogs, again, we didn't think about the dogs, and we didn't think about those who were visually impaired, and how this is going to affect them. The ripple effect, we just keep learning more and more and more. And this is something that is critical that we need to pay attention to. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And if I leave people with one piece of advice, it's, guide dogs can't observe social distancing. So if you're going for a walk, keep your dog on lead around other dogs and make it easier for other people. They might not be able to see you.
Beautiful. Wisdom.
Cool.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much. Good advice.
Awesome. Lovely to see you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Great to see you. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Yeah, have a great Saturday afternoon, evening.
Will do. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right.